friends, I have a problem. As of recent, I've been going on my phone a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean my screen time is completely out of control. It feels like for every time I think about picking up a book, I end up picking up my phone instead. And I spend hours just scrolling on my phone mindlessly without actually doing what I would rather do, which is why for the next week I am going to be conducting an experiment where I read a page for every single time I picked up my phone this past week. Today is Thursday, October 31st, which means that in order for me to find out exactly how many pages I need to read today, I need to backtrack exactly a week to October 24th so I can see how many times I picked up my phone on that given Thursday, and then that'll dictate the amount of pages I need to read today. And if we go under screen time, I picked up my phone a total of 138 times last Thursday. Did not think I'd be breaking through the hundreds, at least not on the very first day. I think there is something to say about how desensitized I have gotten at the amount of times I've picked up my phone. Granted, I do work social media, so I am looking at my phone quite often, but this is more than I'd like to be looking at my phone. It feels like every time I think, oh, I should be reading, or I need to be reading, or I want to be reading, I am on my phone instead, and I can't unglue myself from it. So 138 pickups to me is kind of crazy. However, for day one, I am not mad at this amount of pages. I do need to finish an entire book by tomorrow morning, so hopefully between the amount of pages I need to read today and tomorrow, we'll more than get to finish said book and potentially have a good time. And the book we'll be starting off with is The God and the Gumiho by Sophie Kim. We have got a trickster god, we have got a nine-tailed fox, we have got a coffee shop detective work. It sounds like the best and coziest time. I absolutely love K-dramas, and this is set to read like one, so I am very excited to get this started. Let's settle back, friends. And before we get started with today's video, I do have to give a massive shout out to Valessa, who is partnering with me today to bring you guys an all-new toy giveaway that you won't want to miss. And if you've been here on the channel before, then you know that I've worked with Valessa countless times before. They are a bi-women company focusing on all things sexual wellness, and their mission is to empower everybody to embrace, explore, and celebrate their sexuality. And today, that is coming in the form of the first ever silent vibrator. I can't believe that just in 2024 we are seeing this, but let me introduce you to the Whisper Bullet, which is one of the things you can win today if you do sign up to our giveaway. Valessa's new Whisper Tech makes sure that you never have to choose between power or discretion ever again, meaning that you can prioritize your pleasure without waking everybody up at home or even your partner sleeping next to you. Because when I say silent, I literally mean silent, sub-audible, no noise, full power, all the things, and I'm gonna show you right now. We just press the button right here, and I'm holding it up to the microphone. You can't hear anything. It is seriously the most luxurious yet aesthetic little toy that you could ever need, and it packs a serious punch. This thing is still on. She's powerful yet somehow completely silent. I don't get it, but I do love it. So I'm just saying, everybody who signs up to the giveaway will either get a free Whisper Bullet or a free Air Vibe with their Whisper Bullet order, which is a $99 gift. More like free 99, which I do absolutely love. So make sure to click the link in the description, claim your own vibe, and you will thank me later. Seriously, all of their toys are amazing. Who's been reading The God and the Gumiho by Sophie Kim. It is me, Mel. Hello. I am also currently eating dinner. I ordered some beef and broccoli and some rice. It is amazing, as to be expected, so I'm having a great time. I have already reached my page count, my goal for the day, which was 138 pages. I started today being 34 pages into the book, and so I needed to get roughly 172 pages in. Girlfriend, I am 198 pages in, about to start chapter 20. And let me tell you, at this point in time, I can't stop reading because one, I'm in the middle of a one-bed trope scene, which followed a hurt for comfort scene, and in general, lots of banter and tension between Sokka and also Hani, our two main characters, and I'm loving this. I will preface this by saying that I think it took me a little bit to get into it. I don't know if it was necessarily the book more than it was me. I've been struggling to read since the end of August, and I don't know if it's that I just haven't been prioritizing it over everything else happening in my life, or simply that I might have been feeling a little bit slumpy. I feel like I haven't found any blow me away, fangirl over, lose my mind type of book, and I have been in the search for it, but I have DNF'd quite a bit. Books that I didn't even get like 10 to 15% into because I just wasn't vibing with them, as well as things that I haven't been rating that high. So I feel like I've been riding out this wave of not so great reads. So to find something that is making me smile and giggle the way that The God and the Gumiho is, honestly, is a welcomed surprise, but also not that surprising because I was already expecting to love this. In this one, we follow Hani and Sokka. Hani, who works at a coffee shop and who also is the notorious Scarlet Fox, a Gumiho, who has built up quite a rapport in her 1,000 years of living by murdering men, eating their livers, and also consuming their souls. She has kind of given it a rest since 1888 though, because she's satiated enough where she doesn't have to feed again. Her beat is powerful enough and she really doesn't have to succumb to that side of her being. On the other end of things, we have got Sogga, who is actually a trickster god, a fallen god at that. He committed a big crime over 600 years ago and now he has been exiled to the human world, never to enter the godly realm again. However, when the story starts, he does get an opportunity from his brother Wanin, who is the emperor of all gods, to actually reinstate him as the trickster god by complying with a specific set of demands. One, he must apprehend or get rid of this really powerful blood-sucking demon that is ravaging the city and killing people recklessly, and also to apprehend or get rid of the Scarlet Fox once and for all because she has made a recent appearance at the start of the book. Unbeknownst to me, because I knew that Hani and Sogga were gonna work together in some way, shape, or form because she wants to throw him off her scent. I didn't know how that would come into the story because as the story starts, they really dislike each other. He is very rude. He pays no mind to how he treats people. He is very much giving MCU Loki in the way that he behaves, and she wants nothing to do with it. She doesn't want to comply with any of his demands, with any of his rudeness, with any of his attitude, and she makes that very clear. And so again, I was wondering how that would come about, but essentially the chief of police puts up a notice that Sokka is actually in search for an assistant. Nobody takes it up, but once she figures out that this might be her best chance to actually steer him away from her as the main suspect of being the Scarlet Fox, she will become his assistant and start investigating both of these cases alongside him. Sokka immediately tries to push Hani away and Hani's having none of it. Like, she doesn't like him, but at the same time, she does things to test his patience, and he is continuously shocked at the fact that actually somebody is defying him, his orders, his wants, and his needs. If he says, don't get in the car or get in the back seat, she'll get in the passenger seat. If he goes, I want a coffee, 1 cream, 1 sugar, she'll throw 7 and 7 just to spite him. And you can tell as the book moves along that he actually starts warming up to it quite nicely because he appreciates that mischievous side of her, which I really do love. It's in the little details, right? When she does something that he considers, you know, a little bit mischievous, or when she does something that steps out of line in terms of what he deems the line, he kind of smirks a little bit, or he smiles, or he suppresses a smile, and he just looks at her and he's like, well, I kind of really like that, but I can't let her know it. And I absolutely love how she continuously pushes past his defenses. It's absolutely wonderful. Again, I just read a Hurt for Comfort scene and it allowed his more caring side to push through, which I absolutely loved. And then also a one bed scene, which I think we all love as well. And seeing also her recognize the things that she likes about him and that he's not all that bad and that she could actually kind of get used to this dynamic is something that I am quite enjoying. The way that they go about their investigating is so funny because often it doesn't go so well. It's just honestly really funny. Like, I'm actually having a good time with their quips and their banter and how things go awry sometimes just because they cannot get along. It's giving K-drama vibes in the best way possible. So this is great so far. I'm having a really good time. I'm gonna go back to reading though to see how far I can get tonight. I think if I manage to get to page 250, that would be the best case scenario. And because I'm not that far from that, I do think it's possible. I'm only 50 pages away, so we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna go finish dinner, go finish my desired amount of pages, and then I'll likely finish this tomorrow morning because, I mean, I have to, but also because tomorrow we also have quite a bit of pages to read. Welcome to day 2, friends. Today is Friday. Now I know I am coming in hot, super late. It is, well, 6:39. It's not that late, but for some reason it got super dark outside early today. So I am coming in with a little bit of a later update. And the only reason why I'm coming in this late is because I technically already read the amount of pages I needed to read it today. When I went into my screen time earlier, I realized that last Friday, October 25th, I read a total of 93 pages. Now, when I went to bed last night, I got to page 302 of The God and the Gumiho, which means that for me to complete the book, which is 397 pages, I had to read an extra 95. I read 95 pages this morning. I finished The God and the Gumiho. I just hopped out of the live show with Liv, and I already read my 93 pages of the day. So technically the page count for today is done. You saw the b-roll of this morning of me finishing the book. I obviously didn't update about this book a whole lot just because I was more focused on getting it done for the live show today, but I did thoroughly enjoy this. I think the book really nails its own comedy and it understands its characters really, really well. I think the author did a really beautiful job at fleshing out both of these characters and making them deeply relatable whilst being two immortal beings. We have got Kim Hani, who is over 1700 years old, and we have got a whole god in Sogga, who obviously is very old, and despite being so, their banter, their sarcasm, the way they play off of each other, the way they're so petty with each other. Liv and I were talking all about it, but there's this one scene where they're having a staring contest, which I know sounds so ridiculous, but it goes so well with the book and him being a trickster god and really being very mischievous. And they're having this staring contest and he literally blows in her face so that she blinks. And it was so funny. Like, it's just simple stuff like that that works so well in the story. There's this other scene where they're rolling off of a hill just because he pushes her and he falls with her. But then when you get to the end and you see how thoroughly changed Sogga as a main character, as a god is, so rewarding because of his dynamic, his friendship, and his subsequent romance with Hani. We see him fully feel at the end of the book, and it was so beautiful. I really wasn't expecting how heart-wrenching the ending was going to be, but it was. I think it sets up book 2 so well, because I was thoroughly confused as to how or why we'd get book 2, but because of the way that the book ends, it makes total sense. But from the characters to the magic system to the world building, I felt like parts of this read like the Shadowhunters, part of it read like Percy Jackson, part of it read like a K-drama. One of my favorite K-dramas is My Roommate is a Gumiho, and so many parts of this reminded me of that, and it just brought me so much nostalgia. It was truly so good, so well-rounded. The tension between Hani and Sokka is so well built because they truly match each other. She doesn't care that he is a god, and he demands that respect, and it's mostly because he hasn't gotten it. Like, people look at him, even people from the godly courts, and they think that it's kind of embarrassing. Like, the way that he behaves and the way that he handles himself is not respectable, and given the incident that happened, a lot of people have fully lost their respect for him. He is trying to make people subservient and make people kneel for him as a god, but literally nobody is having it, and more than anybody, Kim Hani is not having it. And I love how constantly she puts him in his place. I love how coffee and cozy drinks and food are such a central part of the story. I think it really elevated the story overall. While it sometimes makes it very ridiculous, I think it grounds it even more in reality, which made it for me so much more enjoyable. So that entire aspect of the book I really thoroughly enjoyed. There was really not much about this that didn't work for me, maybe save for the beginning, which did move kind of slowly for me. But after you get to the 100-page mark, it's so easy to fly through. It's so bingeable. The story is so engaging and wonderful. It's so wholesome while still having high stakes because it really is an all or nothing moment where they really do need to save the city of New Cincy, and they have to save everybody in it before it's overtaken by this demon who wants to unleash hell on earth. I really, really did love that. I love that there is this entire secret hidden world beyond the human eye that is right there in front of them, but all of the glamours hide it from the people. I think it was just really wonderful. It's definitely an urban contemporary fantasy. The start of it is set in 1992, which I think also makes it so different from what I typically read, which is, at least for urban fantasy, it's either set in a completely different time space, so in another world, in another universe, but it still feels pretty current or even futuristic. I love that this one is set in the 90s, and so the entire aesthetic of it is very different. We see him drive a Jaguar and have a Nokia phone. It's just all very fun, I think. So I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving this 5 stars despite the fact that maybe the start was a little bit slow, mostly just because this is the first book in a hot second that I've been able to binge without problem and that I was really into and that made me laugh out loud and giggle and really fangirl over these characters. It again is deeply funny without being cringe or overdone or where it doesn't feel organic. I respect that a lot because I think it's really hard to do. So this one for me was a win. And we completed our 93 pages, technically 95 for the day. So I think to start out this experiment, we're doing quite good. Now I need to choose what to go into next because I do want to spend the night reading. I want to cozy up on the couch or maybe on a bed. I don't know where exactly, but all I know is that cozying up is going to get done and I have several options here with me. I think what I am leaning more toward, just because it will be a one sitting type of read and it'll also help me catch up with a series I am in the middle of, is actually A Sign of Affection Volume 10. This recently came out. I am fully caught up with the series, save for this newest volume. And so I'm thinking maybe to fully be caught up so that I don't fall behind, this could be a good shout and I can get this read and see where the characters go in this volume. So I think picking this up can be good. I'll obviously keep you updated as I am reading it, and depending on what happens, if I finish this and I am still in a reading mood, maybe I'll go into something else. I do have another book I am in the middle of and another one that I'm thinking of starting, so really anything can happen. I'll keep you updated, but I think for right now, A Sign of Affection Volume 10 is where my heart is screaming to go. I don't know how many pages this is exactly. It has to be around like maybe between 160 and 200 pages. It's always hard to tell because the pages are not always numbered or they're sporadically numbered. So I feel like this is one of those. Oh, it's 164 pages. Yeah, it's 164 pages, but then there's like always bonus stuff at the back. So let's say that it's 140 roughly. This is gonna be a good shout. I love that we swing back and forth between overhead lighting, no overhead lighting. It was giving me a little bit of a headache, so I did turn it off so that I could fully settle into the mood and the vibes. But I have read the entirety of A Sign of Affection Volume 10. Unsurprising that it was a single sitting type of thing. I sound, again, like a broken record whenever I talk about this. I wish there was like better ways to talk about a manga volume without having to give the same synopsis over and over again. However, because they are so short, I feel like the overall synopsis is better than discussing what actually happened in the volumes so as to not give spoilers. But essentially, A Sign of Affection is a romance story between our main character Yuki, a deaf college girl, and Itsuomi, her traveler boyfriend. It doesn't start out with both of them being together. It starts out with them initially meeting and striking up this friendship. Itsuomi is very curious about Yuki and her life and how she communicates with the world as somebody who is deaf and primarily uses sign language, or really anything readily available to her. Depending on who she's talking to, she may have to adjust her communication style, so she may need to use a whiteboard or a paper or her phone. And he is somebody who not only travels a lot, but also is deeply fascinated by language. He knows several and is continuing to learn others, and he does so because he loves immersing himself in different cultures and fully getting to communicate with people that he otherwise wouldn't be able to. We get to progressively see the backstory as to why that's so important to him the more that we move across volumes, which I honestly have found to be incredibly interesting. And then Yuki, on the other hand, is incredibly fascinated with the world despite living a very sheltered life. He has never really traveled or gotten to know different cultures, and Itsuomi is the person that sort of opens this door up for her, and she now finds herself very willing to explore the world so long as she does it with Itsuomi as the facilitator, I guess, of the experience, and also because she'd love to see the world with the person that she is falling in love with. And so as these two strike up this friendship, they quickly realize that there are more feelings in the midst of it and that they would like to date. And so progressively, as you read the volumes, they do get together, they strike up this relationship, romantic one at that, and we see them kind of experience a lot of firsts in relationships. Itsuomi has never really been a relationship person, and this is Yuki's first real relationship, and with that comes a lot of, I guess, startledness. Is that even a word? But she's often startled at a lot of what happens in this dynamic because she's very much not used to it, and it seems like she also hasn't observed a whole lot lot of it. And so these two experience a lot of first times with each other, moving in together, figuring out their communication style. As I live and breathe, guess who ran out of battery? Me. It happens every few vlogs, and it's okay. We push past it. We switch batteries. However, they do experience a lot of firsts with each other, and I really love how they continue to figure these things out together. And I love how Itsuomi is so protective of Yuki whilst not robbing her of specific experiences just because she is deaf. It seems like a lot of people in her life don't necessarily understand 100% what it means to live life like she does, and whilst they are accommodating, some of them have not bothered to learn sign language. Some of them navigate themselves and their friendships and their relationships very specifically and very differently. And I love how Itsuomi just sees her as Yuki and doesn't see it any different than interacting with his friends. And I really do love that. I love how accommodating he is without coddling her, how he allows her to be her own person and vice versa. I think they're such a great match because both of these people tend to be pretty straightforward and honest without being hurtful, but being assertive. And I really do love that when possibly uncomfortable conversations come up because of external factors and not necessarily things happening inside the relationship, it could be very easy for them to lie or to kind of go around the subject matter and not be forthcoming. However, they choose honesty time and time again, for as uncomfortable as that is. And I really do love seeing this healthy a dynamic. There are other moving parts to the story as well. We see Emma and Shin, who are both of Itsuomi's friends, and we see them potentially strike up a relationship as they go along. We also see Rin and Kyoya, I believe that's how his name is pronounced, Itsuomi's cousin and Yuki's best friend, who also strike up this relationship. So I really do love that this manga series contains more than just our main couple. You do get couple B, you get couple C, and I can't wait for Oushi, who I initially did not like, who is one of Yuki's childhood acquaintances. Can't really call him Yuki's friend just because I don't think they are that, but he would very much like to be friends or more with Yuki. And so I can't wait for him to find like his own happy ending, his own coupling, his own potential match. I am starting to like him more and more as the volumes go along just because we have gotten his backstory at this point. Did not think I'd become an Oushi defender, but like I'm starting to become it because it's sort of a lot as well on Itsuomi's side. But that to say, it was an enjoyable volume. Maybe not my favorite. Like we did experience some things that we haven't seen before in the series, which I think was very exciting. Again, the bit with Itsuomi and Oushi, not my favorite. I'm leaning like a 3.5. It could have been better, and I'm hoping that volume 11 does the most in like the best way possible, but I'm hoping it does the most for sure. I think I have to default into my current read. I love that I'm just keeping the reading going. I don't want to stop. I'm like very much in a reading mood. Definitely want to take advantage of it, and I feel like this could be a natural good next step. I am currently 180 pages into The Crimson Moth by Kristen Ciccarelli, and I think that if I make some progress with this tonight, be it 20 pages or 30 or however many, I feel like this would be good because this is my Patreon book club pick for October. The live show is next Saturday, so a week away from now, and if I could have this done by Sunday, I feel like that could be great so that I can focus the rest of the week reading other things that I have got in mind, and that way I don't push this off more than I need to. So I feel like for right now, this is a smart choice. Let's go into this. Another fantasy. Again, I'm really feeling the fantasy vibe, so I really want to take advantage of that. I'll keep you updated on this. I'll give you like a proper synopsis when I have an update to give, but I think as far as day 2 goes, we've definitely surpassed the goal. I'm at 255 pages today. That's crazy. Morning, friends. We have got our morning tea and I am ready to settle in and read this morning. I think today's reading session may not be as linear as usual when it comes to a reading vlog and specifically a challenge reading vlog. I am meeting up with my brother not too long from now, so I'll try and squeeze in some reading before he gets here so that we can watch a movie together before the day fully starts and have breakfast together and just hang out a little bit because we haven't seen each other in about a week, and so we want to make sure to get a little hangout in. And then I've got a live show at 1 p.m. So it'll literally be breakfast and movie with my brother, followed by a live stream. And then after the live stream, I think I'll get to read a bit more. I'll probably try and read still during the live show. Oh, hi baby, because it's a cozy hangout. The camera's gonna move. There we go. It's a cozy hangout, so it's typically the same format of a sprint because we still have a timer, but it's like a sprint in essence, I suppose. It's more concerned with hanging out and utilizing our time to prioritize our cozy hobbies, self-care, the things that we love, and not necessarily the rigid structure of a sprint. And so I am going to be crocheting whilst I'm there because I do want to make some progress on my current projects. However, I think that if I get tired of crocheting, I may just pick up my book and keep on reading. But for right now, that's not the plan. The plan is to read before any plans today ensue and after all of the plans end. So let's chat a little bit about the Crimson Moth. I did read a bit of the Crimson Moth yesterday. I read exactly 54 pages, so I am now on page 235, about to walk into chapter 34. And I have about 170, wait, is it like exactly 170 pages left? I think so, because the book is 404 pages. So as we live and breathe, as we sit here in our pajamas this morning, I have to read exactly, please hold as I look up my screen time. I have to read a whopping 187 pages, which means that I'll definitely finish this book today and then I'll have a couple pages left over, so we'll probably have to choose something else to read today, which I'm honestly not mad at because I think the God and the Gumiho really put me up in a reading mood, which I definitely needed, so I'm not mad at it. I'm very thankful actually because I needed the push. So for the Crimson Moth specifically, we have got a witch hunter scenario. We follow our main character Rune, who is a witch in hiding. Witches have been outlawed for a couple of years at the start of the book, and a new regime has taken place. In fact, such regime has taken it upon themselves to really erase the knowledge and the history and the understanding of witches so that nobody really gets to sympathize with their kind, and so that if anybody sees a witch or is seen fraternizing with a witch or in cahoots with a witch, they either report them or they suffer alongside said witch. However, Rune specifically acts as a vigilante called the Crimson Moth, who really fights for the safety of the remaining witches and makes sure that they are safe and taken care of, often involving having to move them to an entirely different city or country in order to get them to safety. And at the start of the book, we see her mess up with a specific mission that is tied to her past and her grandma and the safekeeping of witches in the future as well. And she figures that the only way to throw the witch hunters off her scent is to actually court one of them, Gideon Sharp, who also is very suspicious of Rune being a witch. And so, unbeknownst to her, while she courts him in order to, again, throw him off a little bit, he is courting her back in order to figure out if she is a witch. And as they start getting deeper and deeper into their respective ploys, lines get very, very blurred, and they start to not be able to differentiate between fiction and reality and exactly what they are doing for the sake of the ploy and what they are doing just because they want to do so. There are many moving parts to this, so we don't only see their story and their courtship as, again, they are trying to figure things out, but we also see a lot of backstory as how the witches cease to exist as the main governmental entity in the story and exactly what brought them to that point. We see Gideon's past with the witches and exactly what made him hate them in the first place. We see a lot of Rune's childhood and what exactly shaped her as the person she is now, having to pretend to be this socialite and this very preppy persona. It seems like she has lost a lot of her identity through pretending, and I really love the acknowledgement of that in these past few chapters I read. There was the mention of, if I didn't have to pretend so much to be one thing or the other, if I just had to be Rune, what would Rune be? And I really love that the author is taking the time to navigate that thought process and that specific, I guess, item on the list, because it really does seem like she's continuously always pretending to be something that she isn't. And so I can't wait to see maybe where that goes the more that the story goes along, because it does seem like Gideon and Rune convening into this courtship allows the both of them to be the versions of themselves maybe they would be if they didn't have to pretend to be something else, or that they didn't have to fulfill very specific roles because of how their lives have gone down. We not only get those two things, but we also get Gideon's brother Alex, who is also Rune's Rune's best friend. We also see another one of Rune's best friends, Verity. And in general, we just get to see the political landscape of this world and how things have changed so much ever since the witches were outlawed and what exactly that has meant for society as a whole. I really am finding this very interesting. I love that the world is well fleshed out while we also get all of these bits of romance and tension between Alex, Gideon, and Rune, because it is kind of like a love triangle with the brothers. One of those love interests is a bit more one-sided than the other, but it's still quite interesting as part of the dynamic. So I am quite enjoying this. Again, with 170 pages left of the book, I can't wait to see how it's going to wrap up and where it's going to take the story to push us into book 2. I think this is a duology, so I think that the very next installment will be the final one. And honestly, I can vibe with that. I think that 2 books is more than enough to develop this specific narrative. So I'm going to keep on reading, drink my tea, wait for Brother Reads to get here, and we'll go from there. And we'll see how much I get to read this morning, because I'm not sure. Need to cut my hair because look at how long these front pieces are getting. It's actually kind of crazy. That said though, I've got updates. I finished the Crimson Moth threads and I cried. I cried at the ending. I wasn't expecting to cry. I feel like there were certain elements in the story that I was sort of expecting to happen or that I was predicting toward the last third. However, I actually wasn't expecting them to pan out to be true. 1, 2, definitely things that I wasn't expecting to happen at all. But this book was so fun. The game of cat and mouse, that game of I want to lure you in for my own benefit or for my own scheme, and yet the lines continue to get blurred very quickly, so I can't distinguish between what is actually for my scheme and what I am doing because I want to do it, was so freaking well done. And that strategy mindset that almost made them get even more into each other. Like, we see it a lot in the book that Gideon mentions how if Rune wasn't so shallow and was more akin to the Crimson Moth and maybe more strategic, more outwardly smart, he'd be way more into her because it kind of like turns him on, like that chase, that game. And it's the same thing for her. She really loves that he matches her, and that strategy and that almost cunning and conniving nature. In terms of dynamic, it really all worked for me. I love how both of these characters open up to each other reluctantly, but also steadily and progressively throughout the story. We obviously see them in very uncomfortable positions of having to be more vulnerable around each other for the scheme, but also finding a lot of solace in the way that the other responds. Like, they are very almost reciprocal to that vulnerability that is offered, and they seem to understand each other better than other people, despite there being people, I think, in the others' respective lives that also understand them. There really is no match for the way that Rune and Gideon interact. All of the twists and turns throughout the last third of the book also had me gagged all throughout because, again, some of it I was expecting, but I wasn't fully aware or sure of how all of those things would pan out in the story. And so when we got the full explanation for everything, I felt so betrayed. I started crying and actually screaming because I just got mad at one specific character. I won't say who because it is a spoiler, but I started out loving this character, went to actually hate this character toward the end of the book. And I never wish a character death, but I never wanted anybody to die more than this person. I felt so betrayed. It was actually unreal. It was so good. I love even the way that the author described the characters' emotions as they were going through all of these overwhelming reveals. I can't wait to see book 2 because it definitely sets it up quite nicely in terms of Rune's growth as a character. At the start of the Crimson Moth and really throughout the entirety of the book, we see a very green Rune. We see a Rune that, although her grand grandmother was a witch and she did observe quite a bit of witchcraft, she never really learned it. She was a late bloomer and she really doesn't know the first thing about it. And after her grandma passed is when she has done most of her studying and learning of witchcraft. And there's only a limited amount she's able to do in order to not get discovered. And so we see a witchy rune who isn't exactly well versed in witchcraft. And so I think the end of this book gives me a lot of hope to see a potentially more mature rune in book 2. And I honestly can't wait to see how the game of cat and mouse will evolve in that one, because I feel like it's going to be even better than book 1. Because book 1, while it does have the element of cat and mouse and I really enjoyed it, like it was well done, I feel like it could have been even more tense. I feel like book 2 is really going to bring that energy because the ending of this one was really, really explosive. I mean, both literally and figuratively. And so I can't wait to get book 2 when that comes out, because I know it's not out yet, and figure out what will happen then. And it is a duology. I only had to open the flap to figure that out. Book 1 in the Crimson Moth duology, it was only a flap away. So now I know, and I don't know exactly when it comes out, but it has definitely become one of my most anticipated releases of 2025, and I'm very excited about it. And the UK cover for it is also really stunning. So can't wait to get a matching edition for that. And this is book 3 of the video done. We're literally only 3 days in. That's crazy. All I know is if I tally this up, I started today at 234 pages in to the Crimson Moth, and this book is 404 pages, and so that leaves me with roughly 17 more pages to read, because I literally read 170. I need to read 187, so I now need to pick up something else to fill in that void and figure out where we go to next. I seriously, guys, I have to say, Sil just totally jumped on here and she's about to jump again, so I'm just gonna hold the camera because I don't know what baby girl is attempting. There we go. My plan was to read these 3 things and then maybe another book in the entire, like throughout the week. And now I am 3 things in. And so what? Am I gonna end up reading like 6 books this week? Which, I mean, listen, I haven't read that much in a whole minute. And so I would not be mad at that. I would not be, I would love that. And so what to pick up next is the question. I do have Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I feel like that could be a choice. Also, this hair is not giving, y'all. I'm so sorry, but we need to wash it tomorrow morning. We can officially go drop this up in the office since we are done with it. Please hold ugly angle as we walk in and try and figure out what is next. Hi, this lighting is mighty awful. Let me set you up right here. I had to put on a white screen on my computer so that the lighting would be better because it was quite bad. Okay, so I did not make a TBR for November. I don't know if I mentioned that. I'm mood reading all throughout November, which feels a bit weird because I've been following my TBR for a hot second now. And so we are going to put this into the TBR cart and figure out what we can pick up next. So I do have Wild Eyes, again by Miss Elsie Silver. This is the newest release in the Rose Hill series. I have heard that this is much better than Wild Love. And not only that, but I have heard people say that, what's his name again? Weston? I keep calling him Wesley. Where is he? Where's his name? Weston. Okay. Yeah, Weston Belmont. I have heard Belmont. I have heard that he rivals Cade, and I don't know about that because I really love Cade from Heartless, which is part of the Chestnut Spring series, so I don't know quite about that. But I do have this that I could read, I could pick up. I have other things that I'm kind of looking at reading, maybe perhaps. I've got 4 options right here that I've been staring at for quite a bit. I recently got these new editions of Lord of the Rings because you guys, if you were there during the sprinting session in which I figured out that half my copy of Fellowship of the Ring was blank, then you know that I had to get myself a new copy. So I decided to get myself this box set right here because I really loved the spines. I thought they were quite different. Also want to read this before the year is over. Again, the book takes place in 2024, so I feel like it'd be also a good shout to read this before the year is over. So we'll see. That's a contender. I feel like this is the one that I am most leaning toward. I know it's a chunker. It's like really big. This is Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorick. This is a dark fantasy romance. I know Erin has been talking about this quite a bit recently. I have seen this recommended quite a lot in ways that I personally find myself gravitating to. So maybe this book can be a good option, but then I also pulled out The Well of Ascension because I really do want to finish Mistborn Era 1, and I feel like it's much more realistic to perhaps focus on this over the Stormlight Archive, which is much longer. Since I I just finished a fantasy, reading 20 pages of this tonight should be rather easy because it's an entirely different genre. And then I'll likely finish this tomorrow even because I have Patreon sprints tomorrow and I'll probably go on for quite a bit. This book is 400 and oh, we have the excerpt of the next book? That's actually crazy. 433 pages, but it's 433 pages of an Elsie Silver book, which to me is more like 200 pages. So I feel like I could read this primarily all of it, maybe in one sitting tomorrow. It could be a good shout. But right now, let's pick up Wild Eyes. Hello there, nice to see you here. Hi, what a coincidence that we're both here. I definitely just wanted to update you about my book, so this is great timing. Glad that you managed to come over. Hi. So, actually, the glare on my glasses, my iPad, low-key we needed for lighting, so happy glare, I'm so sorry. That to say, I have updates for you. I finished the crochet project that I was on. Look at him! Look at the little frog! Definitely could have made the belly a little bit bigger than it actually is, but I think he is the cutest, most adorable thing ever. I love it. Now I need to find a space for him on the shelves because I don't know exactly where he's going, but we gotta find him a spot. So welcome to the family, Henri. Anyways, that aside, a little crochet friend aside, I have been reading Wild Eyes basically all day as I've been sprinting on Patreon, and I have made it to chapter 16, which is page 182. So today I needed to read, I think it was 155 pages. Yeah, I needed to read 155 pages for 155 pickups. And I started Wild Eyes on page 24 today because I did get to page 24 last night before going to bed, which means that if we subtract, I'm gonna have to do some math here, it gives us 158. So I have read 3 pages over what I needed to read today. Likely chances are I'll still probably read a little bit more before heading into bed. I don't, however, think that it's Chestnut Spring level. I don't think anything that I have read for Elsie Silver outside of the Chestnut Spring series is to that standard, which is sad. In this one, we follow Weston Belmont, who is a single dad. We see him in book 1 because he is Rosie's, the protagonist of Wild Love's brother, being a little cowboy, taking care of the stable, the horses, taking care of his 2 children that he co-parents with his ex-partner, who actually, surprisingly, but I really love that, they actually got along really nicely. But the actual narrative kicks off when Weston is actually driving by and he finds Skylar, a very big country pop singer, trying to take a picture or a video with a bear, a grizzly bear at that. And the girl's like, oh my god, no, wait, the bear's cute. It even has children. And Weston's like, baby, that's not what you think it is. If it's got children, it's worse, actually. So you better run. And her in her bout of stubbornness, because she's doing all this because she wants to post relatable content in her socials, she almost perishes and he saves her. And that is essentially the meet cute. She informs him that she's there on that specific town in order to meet up with Ford Grant because she wants to record her own solo album, music that she completely owns herself, and she is there to sort of get a fresh start and a break from the city and from the very complicated moving parts that are her daily life. This is also happening in the wake of her breakup, and so Girly is just spiraling and just needs to get away from everything. Lo and behold, she's got nowhere to stay, and especially because Ford hasn't fully furnished or even finished his studio that we see in book 1. They figure that the best way for her to find some lodging is to actually stay in Weston's little back house situation, and so she takes it up even though it's pretty much a shed. Like, it's run down, there's not a whole lot in there, and that is how they strike their friendship and their dynamic and how they continue to interact essentially for the majority of the book. I love how great a dad Weston is is, he is definitely very much into the gentle parenting and allowing his kids agency. The kids are featured quite a bit in the story, which I am loving. I love that one is a super firecracker, stubborn, talk your ear off sort of gal, and the rep with him being a girl dad is just absolutely beautiful. It's so gentle and low-key, so healing as well. I love it. And so we have got Emmy, and then we have got Oliver, who is the shyer of the two. He loves his reading and he loves his quiet time, and he really struggles to socialize and interact with new people, and it is quite a surprise to everybody in the unit when he kind of takes up to chatting a bit with Skylar. Not a whole lot, but definitely enough to seem out of the norm. I can't wait to see how that relationship develops. There was this one really beautiful line in the story where it seems like Oliver really understood where Skylar is at and exactly where their sense of kinship, which I will assume, hopefully, fingers crossed, will develop throughout the story, comes from. And I really loved even just that little tidbit before we get into the full extent of the book. I also love seeing Emmy be such a strong little girl, so decided in what she wants to do, and really exemplifying the great lessons that her dad has taught her, which in turn really helps Skylar a lot. I think both of these kids will be great conduits for our main character to not only heal, but to also realize that the way that she's experienced life in childhood is not necessarily the norm or the greatest. Skylar, and it is depicted in the trigger warnings at the beginning of the book, has a lot of childhood trauma and PTSD because of the way that she was parented and the way that her parents continue to show up in her life as she got older. And so you can immediately tell as the book starts that even the way that Weston parents his kids is quite surprising to her. Quite likes that level of depth in the story because it's not only these two people falling in love, but it's also exploring their own individual pitfalls, I suppose, as people. Weston on the other side is somebody who quite struggles with commitment, and he would rather keep things casual, and especially because of the kids, because he doesn't want to involve anybody that won't stick around with the kids. I think the motivations overall make a lot of sense. I really do wonder how that's going to pan out though as the story gets along. There is one thing I really dislike single parent trope books to do, is when the parent goes, oh, I don't want you to get involved with the kids because it'll hurt them when you're gone, and then they still make the choice to involve the kids or the person, although they know they're not going to stay, they still choose to get involved with the kids. And so I hope that for the sake of everybody involved, the kids are well protected in that sense, and that if they do start fooling around or exploring something, the kids are not immediately roped into it, because I feel like I would lose my mind. I've been seeing quite a bit of that dynamic in single parent book or similar dynamics, and I just really dislike it, so I'm hoping it doesn't infringe in that territory. I think it's still not too Chestnut Springs level, just because it's a little bit, oh my god, I don't even know how to describe it, but even the way that the book starts, I think it's a little bit ridiculous and almost trying to be funny without really being funny in ways that I don't particularly enjoy or like. And so I'm having that qualm with the book because I feel like the start was a little bit off-putting because I really wasn't expecting it to start that way. However, as I've gotten along, it has gotten better. I also love that there's smoke. What's happening with the smoke? Oh, I just burned through the entirety of my candle. That's why. If you saw smoke, that's why. I am happy that nothing romantic has happened between the two of them yet. He is very flirty though. Like, it is his persona to be very welcoming, very flirty, very outgoing, and everybody kind of jokes about it, that Weston is the guy to rope everybody in, make friends with everybody, make everybody feel welcome. And although at times the flirtiness does hit, sometimes it does feel a little bit too fabricated on the author end. And so it's a little bit of a tit for tat. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. We'll see where we end up by the end of this. But so far, like, it's enjoyable. It's a good time. Hello, friends! and welcome to a new day. A new day, even though it is 10:44 p.m. and I just finished Patreon Sprint and I have been reading for a hot second in order to meet my page count of the day, but also to make more progress with Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. So to give you a little recap, I'm pretty sure yesterday I told you guys how much I needed to read. And if I did or if I didn't, let me just still give you a little recap of how many pages I needed to read today. It is 134 pages, 434 pickups. I started today on page 182 of Wild Eyes, and I am currently on page 332, which is chapter 31. So I'm literally 100 pages away from finishing this, which definitely takes me to a little over the amount of pages that I needed to read today, which is fantastic. I definitely am feeling conflicting thoughts in terms of Wild Eyes. There are parts of the book that are really, really strong in terms of plot progression, character development, and the way that the scenes themselves are navigated. I really love Emmy and Ollie as the kids, and I really love Wes's relationship with them. Again, as I talked about earlier in the vlog, I really enjoy the dynamic between Wes and his ex and the way that they're co-parenting the kids. I feel like that's really beautiful. I really love, the more that we get into the book, how Skylar interacts with the kids, Ollie specifically, who she seems to have such a big kinship with and who really seems to guide her almost in her journey to songwriting, which is something that she's never done before. I think I really love the way that that's presenting itself in the story, and the way that through meeting this family and interacting with the kids and being in this small town, Skylar gets to a place progressively where she continues to find her true self, untied of all of those expectations or previous experiences that she's had with her parents and with the media and with her job specifically. I think all of those things are really, really great. However, I think where a lot of my maybe distaste for the book is a word that comes to mind, but also where my standoffishness comes in is we see Wes very clearly say that he doesn't want anything serious, which is why he remains friends with Skylar for a really long time as the book goes on. And he makes it very clear that he keeps his romantic life very separate from his kids in order to protect them, because he doesn't want to expose them to something that's temporary. We jump kind of suddenly and quickly from I don't want anything serious to suddenly wanting something serious with Skylar and being very willing to commit, which we really don't see a whole lot of inner monologue to justify it, nor do we ever see real conversations established between these two characters in order to see how he gets to a point of comfortability with something that he hasn't been comfortable with in a really long time because of how his past relationship went down. And so I think getting there so suddenly and abruptly just kind of took me out a little bit as I was reading. And then on top of that, the book, for as short as it is, I mean, I don't know whether to classify this as short or long, because it is 433 pages. You guys may deem whether that's long or short for a romance book. I find that often, depending on what they're trying to do, it is a little bit on the shorter end, especially when there are more moving parts than just the romance and you've got kids involved and a career involved, and you know, the main character is a really huge artist and she's got to work out a lot of issues, not only with her parents, but with her job. I find it a little bit frustrating that this book has so many pointless scenes, which are attempting to build something for our main character and yet fail at doing so because the scenes are so short that, again, they come across as pointless, and I really don't love it. I see what's being attempted, however, so much of it feels like filler that it is starting to get to a point where I'm like, guys, I need the plot to progress more steadily and consistently rather than just this. Like, what is this? Like, where does this take the story? And so I find both of those things very frustrating as I get this read. And also the fact that while we hear a lot about Skylar wanting to find her voice and wanting to create this new record and this album that has got nothing to do with her parents or with her previous history, we rarely see her in these sessions with Ford and Rosie in the recording studio or in sessions. You'd think, despite this being a romance, we maybe would be seeing more of it, but literally when we do get to see it, it is no more than a couple paragraphs and then we move on to something else. And so while we see her sort of having these mental battles in terms of what she's attempting to do, we don't actually see a whole lot of the execution. And I really wish that that specific bit of the story would be more fleshed out, because I think it'd be so interesting to see, you know, the process for these people, these producers, and Skylar in particular, to put together this album. And I feel that there is a little bit of a disconnect between her creating this album and then her in the romance. I feel that maybe if the plot itself would be her escaping without the pretext necessarily of creating something that's uniquely hers, maybe removing that aspect of the story would have made the story go by a little bit more seamlessly and cohesively, because I don't think that that specific point of the story is being well handled, because it isn't given much importance sometimes. And so a little bit of qualm. I'm still somewhat enjoying it. I just read the first couple of smut scenes. I have to say they started off well. I was like, okay, it sounds promising, and then it got really cringy very fast. It got nasty and embarrassing and just like not great, and not like embarrassing in like a real way because like it's being realistic. No, like embarrassing in like a really nasty, disgusting way that was completely a choice, and it really just took me out. You know what I'm talking about in terms of a discarded something on top of underwear on top of a car hood. Not great. It was weird. And then anyways, there's a lot to this that I'm like side-eyeing in terms of the smut, but other than that, like, it is enjoyable. However, I definitely don't think that this Elsie Silver series is the strongest. I am starting to think that I may DNF this, for as much as I want to keep reading the series and like fuck around and find out whether I'll enjoy any of them. I don't know if it's worth trying to hammer this point home. Maybe I think after this one I should just call it good, because honestly speaking, we've seen Tabitha, which is going to be the main character for Wild Side, I think is the next book, which is, I mean, the cover's stunning. It's green, but yeah, Wild Side. I genuinely don't care about the characters. Like, it's not Chestnut Springs like where I see all of the characters and I go, oh my god, I want to know more, I want to see more. I'm like, I don't care, because this is so underdeveloped and like we're giving half answers half the time and things are just not fleshed out well, and I just don't think that I want to keep on going with the series. So this may be, for as much as it hurts me, I think a DNF series, because I can't keep doing this. I really can't. I think depending on how this ends, which I can't imagine that I'll be giving this any more than a 3-star, if that, I don't think it's worth it. I genuinely don't. Tomorrow I have to read, please hold, tomorrow I've got to read 98 pages, so even just finishing this book completes me the amount of pages that I need to read for tomorrow. I'll likely still read something different during Patreon sprints tomorrow night. However, I definitely want to try and finish this before the day fully kickstarts. So, because I'm waking up so early, I think it's possible. I'll keep you updated. I doubt that I'm gonna get any reading done tonight, primarily because I'm ready to just take the makeup off and head right into bed, because I do have such a long day tomorrow and I do have to wake up quite early, and it's already 10:55 p.m. so I feel like it's smart for me to go to bed early. Hair's looking crazy, but good morning, friends. I know I didn't have any b-roll between the last clip and this one. However, it has been a full day. I did read yesterday and I did finish Wild Eyes, but I finished it so late last night. I think it was almost 10 p.m. By the time that I finished it, I had a pounding migraine just on the right side of my head, just like right here. And anytime I would look at a screen, or I would even just like attempt to rationalize any sort of information, I would just feel it pound and pound and pound, and I had to go to bed. And so I did, and I did not update you yesterday. However, I did read my 98 pages. I have got Wild Eyes right here. I did finish it, and I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. It definitely had redeemable parts about it, especially when it comes to the kids and how the kids related to Skylar and Weston as a father. And I think the lead up even to them getting together had also redeemable aspects. I don't think I loved all of it. I think the incessant flirting in ways that was really cringy was not my personal favorite, and so I think there was that element to it. But I also think that the smut in itself really ruined a lot for me. It was really, really bad. Not my cup of tea, or I guess I should say not my cup of tea, because there probably will be people out there that enjoy it. I myself, sadly, did not. Like, it was not for me. And so that aspect really just brought down the rating for me. And then when you get into the starlet aspect of it all, and you get into, I guess, the nuances of Skylar as an artist and what her job has been and what it'll continue to be moving forward after her experience at Weston's house in this small town, I also really didn't like it. I thought we were gonna do better things, or perhaps navigate the experience a bit better, and maybe, again, touch on some things with more detail or with more nuance. And earlier I had mentioned in the vlog how I felt that that aspect was severely underdeveloped in the story, despite being a huge selling point for it. And I think it gets worse the more that you get along. Like, you get less description. It's all done in like these small sort of weird vignettes instead of properly exploring her journey and writing music and recording it and releasing it and what exactly the media says. And so we see like these very tiny, seemingly almost unimportant things because they're not given proper space in the story. And so it was a little bit frustrating. I really wish that perhaps Elsie Silver would have gone deeper into it. I think she had a really good opportunity to do so. And while aspects of the book do it well, I don't think the last third really does. And so again, very frustrating. And 2.5 stars is the final rating. And you better bet I am DNFing the Rose Hill series after this installment. Neither this or Wild Love hit, and I think it'd be very masochistic of me to try and keep reading the series in the hopes of something getting better, especially because as the book goes on, you kind of get a little bit of setup for the third book. I don't think it's something that I'm going to enjoy, and so I am gonna give up the series and just call it good, because everybody had said that this was way better than Wild Love. I didn't think it to be so. I think in ways maybe, but wholeheartedly no. I think it'd be masochistic if I kept on going, kept trying to, you know, hammer the same point and not get different results, so we're not gonna do that. My hair is looking crazy right now because I do have a hair appointment today. Hello. I am chopping off my hair. We are doing color, everything. I have one yearly appointment for my hair every single year. I don't do my hair like every couple months, just because one, it tends to be pricier, and two, because typically when I get my balayage done or whatever I get in my hair, it typically is something that stands the test of time and something that I can wear for longer, something that doesn't need touch-ups or anything, and also something that if I were to cut my hair very consistently, I would have to recolor it every single time, and it would get expensive in ways that I don't care to spend my money for, and so I just get it done once a year. It's a really good time, and I feel like anytime I do end up cutting it, it typically is like the end of a cycle, so it feels very just important, I guess, like spiritually even, for me to do so, and we have reached that point, so I'm very excited about this. I am going to take a book with me. I don't really know how many pages exactly I have to read today, so let's double check that together. Today I have to read, please hold as we click on things and try and find this, 93 pages. 93 pages is really not that bad. I think with 93 pages, I can definitely get those read maybe while I'm getting my hair done. If not, then definitely when I come back home, not a problem. I was also thinking maybe I could take myself out for lunch and grab my book and read while I'm eating lunch, so maybe that's even a possibility since I'm gonna be out and about kind of running this errand, so maybe that could be a good time. I do think that out of all of my book options, Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien is the one that I want to pick up. I'm feeling very high fantasy. I definitely want the aesthetic of Middle-earth. I definitely want to see my hobbits and my wizards and just all of the good stuff, and so I think that's the one I'm gonna take with me. We need to grab a bookmark. Need to also grab my book sleeve, which is up here, so that I can pack this up and take it with me, and then also pack my bag so that I can go. And so there's that. That's where we're at. I'm going to pack all this up and then going to get ready, and then we're gonna go and we're gonna get the hair done, and by the time that I'm back, my hair will be about 4 hands shorter. It's gonna be fantastic. Guys, guess who's back from getting her hair done? Evidently. Hello. I am back home, and you know what? It took 7 hours to get my hair done. I was fully expecting to be back home by like 2 p.m., have some solid updates for you on the reading front, and be able to chill and read and get some work done and go about the rest of my to-do list. However, I went in at 10 a.m. to get my hair done, and I walked out at 5 p.m. Not great. I do feel like I lost my entire day. However, a new hair has arrived and it was deeply needed. Evidently, the hair has more shape now. The color makes sense. I did not read Lord of the Rings. I ended up reading something else. So I do have some updates for you. However, absolutely no B-roll because I went back and forth between being incredibly sleepy while I was getting my hair done and then getting my hair done and reading at the same time. And so no B-roll was recorded while I was there. But I do have some updates about Guild by Raven Kennedy. Really ugly angle, but let's walk to the kitchen so that I can have a better angle to give you updates. Let us set you up right here, my friend, to give you some updates on Guild by Raven Kennedy. So I had already started this book. I was on chapter 7. I was on page 68, which means that I actually don't know if I did read the full extent of pages that I needed to read today. So let's actually double check because I was reading this digitally because I could not pull out my two hands to do any reading because they had to be like underneath the little cape they give you when you're getting your hair done. And so all I could do was take out one sneaky little hand and just read on the Kindle app. And so I got to chapter 16, which is page 167, at least digitally. I don't know if it'll be any different on the physical copy, but let me just place my, well, let's actually recap. Today, Mel needed to read. Mel in third person needed to read 93 pages. So I should have read up to page, actually 161, I think. Let's see. So page 68 plus 93, 161. I feel like I just scraped by, honestly, with that page count. So let us find chapter 16. Let's hope that it's the same. Oh my God, it is the same exact page count. Okay. So I made it to page 165 on the physical book, which means that I did read the amount of pages I needed to read today. This was definitely not the plan, however, because I technically, quote unquote, I'm reading this book for another video, but at this point, I may just pick out another book for that video because you better bet that I started this. I have been reading it, have been vlogging essentially none of it. However, for this book specifically, I'm not yet sure how I feel about it. Like, it's a solid enough time for me to want to keep reading it, but am I loving it necessarily? No, but I am very hopeful to see where it's gonna go. I have heard that out of the series, the first installment is the weakest one, that it does get better the more that you read, that by the time you get to book 3 or so, you'll be fully invested, it'll be gut-wrenching, it'll hit all the right spots in terms of the romance and everything else. So I am quite hopeful to maybe finish this one, and depending on how this goes, go into book 2, which I also do own because the publisher sent it over, and see what that experience is like and figure out if I do want to keep on going with the series or where exactly your girl will fall on this one. However, in Guild, we follow our main character Oren, who is the king's favored. This is in a way a King Midas retelling, so King Midas is the main character, and Oren specifically is part of his entourage of companions that please him sexually. However, out of all of his different companions, she is the preferred one because she was gold touched when she was younger, and he did in fact save her when she was a lot younger as well. And so their relationship dates back a lot further than a lot of these other saddles, is what they call them. And when he gold touched her, instead of her becoming a statue or dying on the spot, which is typically what would happen, her skin turned completely gold, and she in fact has lived the rest of her life so far in that state because her skin never changed back and she never changed forms. She is being held up in this cage that she lives in, because she does live in a cage. He doesn't give her any agency. It's all what he says, and that has to go. And so he dictates her every move, her every day, and she has to follow his every command. I'm convinced that this happens because there's probably something that we as the reader don't know, maybe in terms of her power or where she comes from, her abilities. Maybe she matches him in terms of power. Maybe she is more powerful than him. I've got no idea, but it can't just be that he wants her and she is his, as he so says it. I feel like there has got to be something more as far as motivation goes to keep her locked up the way that he does have her locked up. And so we'll see when we get there. But so far, we follow this dynamic of her living in his castle in his kingdom as he again dictates every single move of hers, and as he keeps her contained to this very specific cage. We don't know much outside of that. We know that this is a very abusive relationship, that he definitely treats her as less, but disguises it as treating her like more. And so far what we've seen in the book is her realizing, I think, more and more, and still she doesn't admit it, but I think she sees it more clearly, how he treats her as an object and as something of less value, despite saying that she is worth a lot. And I think she is starting to become more and more disillusioned with the idea of him. I don't think she is unaware of what the dynamic is, especially with certain lines dropped in the book. However, there is that element of denial and that element of not wanting to accept that certain real situations are those situations specifically. And so she is very much blanketing this all as he loves me and he is going to take care of me. That is what he's doing, but to the reader, evidently it's not. And so far we have that. There is some sort of ploy about him wanting to take over other kingdoms and potentially battling a very specific king called King Ravenger, who seemingly has a lot of power. He has an ability to, I think, rot things. They call it the power of rot or the ability of rot. And so I know that there's that, but beyond it, I think the actual plot of the book has not even kicked in fully. I think there are certain things scatteredly happening, but nothing so cohesive to the point where I'd be able to say, this is the plot, this is cohesively what the entire book is going to explore. So I really don't know what's going to happen. That's all I can give you. But I do admit that the story, the concept is interesting and I would like to see where it goes. I do think this was one of those series that sadly gives me the vibe of it's going to take a solid minute till we get to a consistent plot, and I am afraid that these books are going to be more vibes than anything else. And so that's partly the reason why I don't know if I'm going to read the entire series or cap it at this, cap it at the second one. I've got no idea. I'll be reading and I guess keeping you guys updated on that end and see where these things go. But that is essentially what I read today while I was getting my hair done. Not Fellowship of the Ring, sadly. And that is it for today, friends. That is me reading a page for every single time I picked up my phone in the past week. Now, I did just do the final tally, and if I added all of the numbers correctly, which I have been tracking day to day, I read a whopping 1,278 pages in the past week, which I think is absolutely crazy because I don't tend to read that amount of pages. So it really is astounding what happens when you read consistently, because I rarely do. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, don't forget to give it a massive thumbs up down below. Let a girl know if you've done a challenge like this before, where you kind of equal out the amount of pages you read by the amount of times that you picked up your phone to do some sort of balancing act, or what other challenges you have either done yourself or you think that I could do that will challenge me to read consistently and maybe push myself a little bit further as a reader. Do let a girl know all of that in the comments. Have you read any of the books that I read in this video? If you did, let a girl know down in the comments as well. All of your thoughts, all of your opinions, you know I always want to hear them. Or just also let a girl know what you're currently reading, because I always love to snoop. So all of that can be left in the comments below. If you reach the very end, we can leave some butterfly emojis down below. It's not a moth, but it's the closest thing to it. So I'd say some butterfly emojis down below for the crimson moth could be a good time. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already for more content like this. I do have a Patreon as well in case you guys want to support the channel further and join us in all of our different endeavors, from live streaming every other day, doing reading sprints very often, having a Discord server, reading books together, and overall just joining a community of like-minded people. Patreon is always linked down below and it helps the channel a ton to run it smoothly. So in case you ever want to support extra, it is always there. I love you guys so much, and I will see you on the next one.
Goodbye!